Back in October, for the second time this year, I found myself on the long drive north from South Staffordshire all the way up to Orkney off the north coast of Scotland. This time, the weather being typically autumnal had actually been pretty grim all the way up the motorway. I'd stopped at T-Bay for breakfast at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was throwing it down with rain there, and it really didn't improve all the way to Inverness. And I finally, as I was entering kind of Sutherland and the Caithness area, that's when the clouds finally started to part a little bit, and there was a little sense of colour as I was approaching Thurso. It wasn't long before I was on the bumpy ride across the Pentland Firth and found myself back in familiar territory on Orkney. First named storm of the year, Storm Amy, hadn't long passed through. I think I arrived about 5 or 6 days afterwards, and the weather had remained unsettled since then. But actually, that suited me fine. I'm one for kind of glowering dark skies and stormy shorelines. For me, I'd much prefer that to open blue skies, certainly. And having had a day recovering from the long journey north, and because it was windy, we spent a day exploring some woodlands, quite a rare thing on Orkney actually, but we then on day 2 ventured north again to Bursay, Mach Head and Northside. We'd actually arrived at high tide, but it didn't take long for the tide to start falling fairly rapidly, which made life fairly tricky. The shoreline there is very, very slippery, and we'd made 2 or 3 hard-earned images on some of that sloping rock. But now it was getting to a point where it was impossible to get close to the water. So we strolled along to Skibbergeo, and then at that point, rather than continuing along Northside, decided to head to the other side of the main bay at Bursay, and where there's a bit of sand as well, we could get down onto the shoreline. flying the drone, there was clearly cloud as far as the eye could see, and the drone could see right out to the far western horizon. So I really didn't have any hope for a colourful sunset or any kind of vivid colours at the end of the day. At this point, it looked as though it was going to be the kind of thing where it just settled to the blue hour, and that would have been great. That would have been lovely because we'd have had plenty of time to make long exposures and images of water moving between the rocks. So I was pretty confident in my expectation that we were going to have a long and fairly relaxed and subtle finish to the day. I had no idea what was coming, even though I'd actually experienced it on previous occasions. I've worked in Sutherland and on Mull and various other places in the past where I've been photographing all day in flat grey conditions, and then suddenly at the end of the day everything goes completely mad. On arriving at the new location, it didn't take us long to find some great compositions and get ourselves set up ready for what we thought would be some blue hour photography. So I am currently at Bursay looking towards Mavic Head, waiting now on these rocks for sunset. I think the sun's going to drop into the cloud bank. Actually, to be honest with you, I want that to happen right now because the light on the sea is way too bright, but I found a fantastic bit of foreground. It's a little bit of a tiptoe out here, but if I bring you through and past my camera, you'll get an idea of what I've got as foreground here. Amazing curvy rocks. And then of course out beyond that there's there's Mavic Head. My camera's a bit higher up so it doesn't break. There's that gap, there you go. That's the kind of the angle I'm at for the camera. Obviously I've got much more depth, I've got all that shaping down there, running all the way through and out along this rib to the horizon. There's a lovely shaft of light now. I'm taking a few pictures as I go. There's a beam of light almost pointing straight at the head, so I'm going to clock off now and get a shot of that. I'm currently waiting now for the last light. I've got a composition in mind. If I bring you closer to the camera, I'm having to watch my footing here because it's a little bit slippery every now and then. I found this lovely foreground here. It's scalloped shaped rocks, so they're all kind of water worn. And then obviously it leads out along this rib. We've got Mavic Head at the back. If I show you what I've got on the back of the camera, that's what I'm looking at the moment. At the moment the light is a little bit on the harsh side, particularly in the water. I've got a 2-stop hard grad and a 2-stop medium grad on there at the moment. I've actually got a reverse grad in my bag, but I don't think that will really help, simply because there's that little notch of water that's the issue. And I think once the sun gets down a little bit lower and perhaps drops in behind the cloud, I'll still get some contrast in the sky and I'll still have this glow on the rock. But what I don't want is that little patch of water out there burning out, and you see where the sun is right now, just there. Just tremendous conditions, absolutely flat calm. Behind me on the other side of the Rock of Bursay, the sea is absolutely raging away. It's not really wrapping around the headland and coming into this bay at all. Beautiful conditions. In actual fact, I'm going to head back to my camera right now. I was just having a look at some of the little details on the ground, but I think the light has just deadened a bit over the water, so I'm going to have a go at getting this shot now, because I fancy having a look at a few other things before I leave this evening. So I'll be back in a moment. Actually, so what I'm going to do here is I've decided to bracket my exposure. The sky is getting kind of brighter actually relative to the rocks, which means I'd have to apply more grad. But what I'm going to do is I've put a bracket on to expose 2/3 and 1/3 over my set kind of tone for this, but I'm also focus stacking. So I've got focus at the moment in the foreground down here, and I'm going to take a 3-shot bracket of that. Here we go. So that's 3 exposures of that. You can see the blinkies on there showing that the last exposure, which was the overexposed one, and then right down to the back, do the same again. So this is focused at the far horizon. To save space on my SD card, and I'm just going to go back to single shot, and I'm going to take one photograph of my hand to indicate the end of the stack. There we go. And basically what I'm going to do actually is blend 2 of these shots. I'm going to use the lower exposed far horizon shot, which should mean that my water and my sky are well held, and I use my higher exposed foreground focused shot and blend those 2 together, so I'll get a correct exposure for the top and a correct exposure for the bottom, and obviously I'm using the sharpened top image and the sharpened bottom image to merge together for my stack. Some of these colours, the rock here is just the most incredible orange, really beautiful. Because this is glowing a lot more than where I was. The rock down under that kind of spends half of its life submerged is considerably darker than this. There's kind of some nasty slimy black here, but look at these lovely shapes here. Just going to find myself a new composition for the very end of the day. So I wandered away from the shoreline itself, and with my back to the light, I started to explore along the cliff edge underneath the cliffs and looking at the sandstone layers. And I was marvelling at the ever increasing glow coming off of the rock without really attributing it to any light from behind me. Even when the palace at Bersay was sunlit, I didn't think about looking over my shoulder. The foreground in front of me still hadn't got any sun in it, but then all of a sudden everything exploded. You never know it's going to happen, but my goodness me, look at this. We've had a shower come through. Colours are spectacular, and what we've got is this fantastic sandstone, bedrock, shale beds, and the colour is kind of everywhere in the scene. This is what I have got in camera at the moment. Beautiful. Wow. Here's the view right now. I don't think it gets any better than this. About 10-15 minutes after sunset now. We've got this amazing glow out on the horizon, and then some of the clouds. Oh, look at that. And behind us, actually, on the north side, it's looking very blue and very stormy, so I think actually we've done exactly the right thing coming over here, no doubt about it. That's quite astonishing. What a beautiful sky. I'll leave you now with the sequence of images that I shot from the point when the sun first hit the foreground at my feet, right way through until the colours had pretty much turned blue. Thanks very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.